A while back, I mentioned a Facebook group by the name of Ukraine Crisis. Now, that title sounds kind of generic and somewhat neutral because it doesn't really imply any bias. But, a closer look at the group, you don't need to dig too deep to see it's very clear pro Russian bias. And bias doesn't even sum up its agenda of pushing Russian lies. Anyway, I wasn't the only one who took issue with it. A number of people were giving it low reviews. It had its fair share of apologists as well, and other Putin stooges. I try to avoid saying Russia stooges because I'm always aware of those courageous Russians who are are taking real risks to oppose the regime, and we must never ever descend into demonizing 146 million people. It's roughly the population of Russia now. Even if the majority are with Putin, there is a sizable minority, I think, that they know this man is a problem for their country and the world. Anyway, in that Facebook group, on their platform, they had their platform. They had this video in which the hostage, the prisoner of war, Aiden Aslam, who's a British Ukrainian citizen. I understand he holds both passports. Has been captured. The other man, Sean Pinner, I believe his name is. There's been less coverage of him, but he is also in detention. He's 48 and a former soldier who is also being active in the Near East, fighting against ISIS. Um, the courage of these men is unbelievable. But as a matter of fact, Aiden Aslan is not a mercenary. He didn't join the Ukraine Foreign Legion, and I happen to believe that's a moral cause. I happen to believe it's a noble cause. But he's not a mercenary. He's actually in the regular Ukrainian army. He's been in Ukraine for 4 years. But what I found particularly repulsive about this video was the interrogator, so-called journalist, wasn't a Russian. He's a British man. I'm going to read out from the Sun now. A little disclaimer here: I've criticised the tabloids in the past, and I don't particularly like the Sun. I'm just saying this because we're talking about the nature of journalism and the nature of what angles publications and so on take. Um, but when it comes to issues of geopolitics, um, most of my contentions with the likes of the Sun are domestic, not international. I find that there's a broad alignment with most of our newspapers on geopolitics, roughly speaking, very roughly speaking. Um, and the Sun's take on this, I have to say, I completely agree with them. That doesn't mean that anything I've said against the Sun in the past is void. It doesn't mean that I will not say anything against the Sun in the future. It is a tabloid. I don't like tabloids, but this is the report. It's by Tom Wells and Kate Ferguson. Haw Haw Fury. Um, Britain's new Lord Haw Haw should be stripped of his UK passport for pumping out Russian propaganda, experts said last night. Expat journalist, and if that inverted commas, rightly so, Graham Phillips, 43, is acting as Vladimir Putin's stooge in Ukraine. He quizzed captured British soldier Aidan Aslan, 28, this week, asking him why he should escape the death penalty. Well, maybe the same question should be asked of you, Mr. Phillips. MPs yesterday denounced the 44-minute interview with the cuffed and injured Aslan as a flagrant breach of the Geneva Convention. The video was still hosted online by YouTube last night, where Phillips' channel has 264,000 followers. Tory MP Robert Jenrick fumed at degrading a prisoner of war in this grotesque propaganda video. Phillips is exposing himself to war crimes prosecution and revocation of his British passport. I sincerely hope that happens. Um, Security expert Colonel Richard Kemp likened Phillips to British Nazi sympathiser William Joyce, better known as Lord Haw Haw, who broadcast German propaganda via radio during World War II. Joyce was executed in 1946. Colonel Kemp said he's being used as a tool by Putin just as Lord Haw Haw was used by Hitler. The thing is, being used as a tool implies that he doesn't know what he's doing. He does know what he's doing. He's a traitor. Um, there's a little picture there. Let's see if I could get this up. So he's in the green top there. I know nothing about this guy except that was well when I saw the video I could tell it's British voice, but they didn't name the journalist. Um, if this information is correct and that is the person who's well, I haven't been to his YouTube channel. Frankly, I'm not sure I could stomach it. And I certainly couldn't watch that whole 44-minute interrogation. Of course, these people are very, very manipulative. So it wasn't like he wasn't beating the prisoner. Um, on the surface, it seemed polite. He was talking about, oh, we're going to stop every few minutes to give Mr. Aslan a glass of water, and we'll ensure that we're treating him well. And so, there's this facade of, well, look, we're treating him in a civil way. But the bottom line is this: Graham Phillips is working for the Russian tyrant. He's working for the enemy. Russia's an enemy of the West right now, make no mistake about it. And I think for him to degrade a prisoner of war this way, no matter how civil it might sound, it is degrading because it's being used for propaganda purposes. It's no different from those who've been set up in show trials in China. Peter Humphreys, who I spoke to a while back, who faced a show trial in China. I see this as no different. This is going to be broadcast to Russian state TV. You could be absolutely sure that anything Aiden Aslan said in that 44-minute interrogation will have been under pressure, no matter what is said to the contrary. They might say, "Oh, we're giving him water, we're treating him in a civil way." The point is, it's this is broadcast to the Russian state now. Ukraine has also captured Russians, and yes, they have done interviews. Could there be some coercion going on there? Possibly, possibly. But no matter what angle you look at with the Ukraine situation, nothing, nothing, nothing changes the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine. That's why there's simply no moral equilibrium going on here. Um, so anyone who gets into whataboutery regarding Russia and Ukraine needs to look at the situation as the David and Goliath situation. The only reason well, I say the only reason is a big reason that Ukraine has prevailed for so long is because of the incredible courage of the Ukrainian people, the stoic leadership of Volodymyr Zelensky, and yes, Western support. That's why Ukraine's prevailed for so long. I also think it's extremely low morale in the Russian forces, the bad management of the Russian forces. Um, the problem is when you have a tyrant like Putin, when he's making strategic mistakes, leaving aside the moral issues, when he's making strategic mistakes, everyone's scared of him. So no one's going to answer back. Um, and famously during the war, the Fuhrer made, some big blunders because people were scared to stand against him. Some weren't, some tried, but if this was a Russian interrogator, it would still be bad. It would still be what it is, but that would be expected. I have to say, I personally find it very, very hard to stomach people who stab their country in the back, people who enjoy the benefits of living in a free, democratic, liberal democracy, yet they pander to dictators like Putin. It makes me sick. It absolutely, and to be honest, I get so angry about it that for the sake of my mental health, I can't spend too much time thinking about it. I mean, Eden Aston and John Pinner, I assume they'll do the same to him. They will know they're being used, but for the sake of their lives, they have to go along with it. No matter how civil that interview looks, no matter what Mr. Aslan says, you cannot take it at face value because, for all we know, outside of the image, there's guys with guns. You know, um, and I have to say, I think Graham Phillips is the scum of the earth. I think people like that. I absolutely think there should be an updated treason law for people like him. Um, I think he should serve prison time in the UK for serving the Russian state. And there's others. I think George Galloway. I mean, stand by everything I said in that video. For Galloway to whine about Twitter calling him state, affiliated with Russian state media, Galloway can tell himself that he's independent. But the way I see it, as soon as you allow your platform to go on the Russian state media without challenge, Galloway's Sputnik has been hosted by RT for years. There's just no way to gloss that over. You are directly then connected to the Kremlin propaganda outlet. A few years ago, I challenged the Liberal Democrat Mark Oten, who'd appeared on RT, and he claimed that he wasn't being used. In his case, it might have just been naivety, but I and others pointed out that it doesn't matter if he thinks he's going to have an independent voice. RT's agenda was always, always, always to be anti-West. It was always the narrative was always to make the West look bad and to use Westerners as propaganda tools. Always. Um, Yesterday, I heard that there was some guys in Ethiopia applying to the Russian embassy. Now, Moscow's denied this, but they were applying to fight with Russia. Ethiopian guys. The thing is, they didn't seem to have any real ideological connection. In their case, they were unemployed. It was an opportunity, as unfortunately young men have done throughout history, signed up for that reason alone. Um, and I wrote on the thread that this is the great irony of this is they're talking about, because there was some Pan Africanists there talking about Western colonialism. Yet these Ethiopian guys are going to be used, if indeed they do sign up, to be used for Russian imperialism in Ukraine. I mean, what has an average Ethiopian got against an average Ukrainian? Why would they want to be part of Russian war crimes in Ukraine? It makes no sense. And, I almost feel sorry for them because they're so clearly being used. Now, Russia's denied that it's recruiting them. I wouldn't trust anything that comes from Russia. I mean, there's indications that they are recruiting Syrians and certainly Chechens. I don't think there's any surprise about that. It's almost like there's a mini world war going on in Ukraine. There's been a lot of talk as it's a trigger for World War III. It might still be. This is a very significant conflict. But I think that the international presence on the ground, the number of foreign fighters in the Ukraine Foreign Legion, and then combined with those who are now coming in on Russia's side, it's like a mini world war going on. Um, Zelensky in his Easter message, the Orthodox Easter, of course, being a bit later than the Western Easter, um, was speaking about good prevailing over evil, and Ukraine has to win this war. I mean, when I say win, I want to validate that a little bit. I'm not talking about necessarily in there's no winners of war in the sense that both sides will suffer. This isn't the sort of war where it's like both sides have an equal argument. Russia's the aggressor. Russia is the bullying power. It's Russia has zero moral high ground for what it's doing. But people in Russia will be suffering from the sanctions. Russian mothers will be suffering from their dead sons and husbands. Wives will be suffering from their husbands killed in the front line as cannon fodder for Putin. And of course, Ukraine is being absolutely. I think there is definitely some of the legal hallmarks of genocide. The fact that the Kremlin doesn't even recognize Ukrainians as a nationality, as a nation state, it's it's sinister. It is actually sinister. What Russia's doing in Ukraine, I think it's going to take not years, decades to rebuild the country physically, but I think the emotional scars are going to last. You know, if you've seen your entire family killed in a Russian airstrike, I think the hatred and the anger wouldn't go away. Um, and unfortunately, that it would be directed at all Russians, even those who are anti-Putin. Incidentally, the Russian players banned from Wimbledon. I think that's wrong. I think it just that just feeds the Russian narrative that there's Russophobia in the West. I think we should target Putin allies by all means. I think we should target traitors like Graham Phillips. Um, but punishing people for their nationality, I think, is wrong. And we don't do this. We don't punish Iranians in the same way for what the Islamic Republic does. We don't punish Chinese citizens in the same way for what the Chinese regime does. So why punish Russians? I think that's wrong. I do believe in going hard against Kremlin stooges. And I think that if someone's a British citizen and they get to this extent, of interrogating a dual British national in favour of Russia, I do believe he should be charged with treason. And if this statute isn't there, then it needs to be updated because this is happening a lot. You get someone like Kim Iverson, who's American, of course. She certainly hasn't went to this extent, um, but she's playing a dangerous game. There's her and there's others. They think that they're being independent and radical by, oh, look at me, look how radical I am, denouncing NATO and denouncing the West. But there's a very thin line between healthy criticism of power, which is important for journalism, versus just allowing yourself to be a useful idiot. Um, and I find it grotesquely dishonest to say that you're independent when you are. I mean, you might be independent in the sense that you are a freelancer, so you're not working for any specific agency in that sense. But you're not independent if you are parroting the lies of a regime. Now, my issue with Kim Iverson of the Hill was she basically parroted the lies of Putin's ally Lukashenko that Bucha was a British false flag attack, and she didn't challenge it. Now she reported it. I recently spoke about punditry versus reporting. She failed in her job as a journalist to follow up on that, to say there's no way to verify this, or Russia cannot prove this. She just spun it out like it was fact. And the way she'd formatted that segment, if you look at the video, um, it's she'd put a little tick mark, or her editors had, as if it was a fact. So I think she's being dishonest to say that she is independent in that sense. I don't think she is. So one of my subscribers, excuse me, I forget who it was. One of you guys mentioned that it's not necessarily that she's pro-Russia. It's more that she just, like a lot of American media, they just want to be. It's about the culture wars and internal American politics. The Hill was actually marketed as a left-wing source. I mean, it was founded by a Democrat. So this isn't some sort of Fox News talking point to have a go at Biden. But I don't know. I challenged the Hill about this. I asked them, how do they justify having a journalist who isn't doing her job by questioning these claims? If you're going to if you're going to quote sources like that, it's your responsibility to follow up on them. If I have a project as a journalist and I'm quoting a government and there isn't evidence to back it up, I will say that. I will say this is a claim of this government, but they don't have the evidence to back it up, or we cannot independently verify that. That's what a responsible journalist should do. I think for Kim Iverson to delude herself and her followers that she isn't pushing an agenda, for her to pathetically claim that she's not political, it's just so obvious that she is. And I don't think she's by any means the worst. I think you don't get much worse than getting to the point of actually being in a war zone and serving as an interrogator. He might claim he's a journalist, but the what I could stomach to watch, because honestly it made me sick. Every few minutes he was explaining Russia's position. It was an absolute grotesque propaganda video. And Graham Phillips, in the unlikely event that he's watching this, I think he should be charged with treason. If you're watching this, Graham Phillips, you're a traitor. I don't know how you sleep at night. I don't know how you dare call yourself a journalist. You are nothing but a stooge for a dictatorship. You're a traitor. And I really do believe if the statute isn't there, if this isn't in existing legislation, then we need to update treason laws, quite frankly. I'm not talking about witch hunt. I'm not talking about going after people who say, oh, well, it's two sides, although I think they're wrong. I'm talking about people who are explicitly pro-Russia or pro-China or pro-Iran. I think anybody who is vocally in favour of a government that is hostile to the West and our interests needs to be treated with suspicion. I really do. I think that, recently academics were whining about being called Putin stooges because they were advocating the Russian argument. Um, I think it's okay to talk about that. But I do think there's a thin line between just talking about something and saying, well, this is what Russia says, versus endorsing that position. I think there's a difference. And those who endorse that position, um, I think they're the lowest of the low, to be quite honest. I really do find it hard to stomach such people. Um, whether it's this desire to be contrarian, whether it is that they're just ideologically anti-West, whether it's greed, like they're getting some sort of financial incentive, it could be all those things. But whatever the case, for someone to stab their country in the back and do it under the false guise that they're a journalist is beyond repulsive. I mean, the whole point of journalism is holding power to account, scrutinizing, getting the truth. If you're serving as a stooge for a dictatorship that crushes free press, except those that are, towing the line, um, then you're not doing your job as a journalist. You are serving as an agent. Um, the same would even apply if you had a journalist who was just blindly saying that Zelensky is right, or Biden is right, or Johnson is right. Um, but I don't think that's happening. I think the reason that Zelensky has got widespread admiration is because it's sincere. Because this is a man who has tirelessly defended his country um, from a larger, more powerful neighbor. I mean, of course, that warrants respect. Contrast his actions to the former president of Afghanistan who fled when Kabul fell. Um, so I think the admiration for Zelensky is well justified. This is not to say he's perfect, but it's, I think when history is written, those who favor Russia will go down very badly.